And
welcome to a live episode of Surviving the Survivor. We bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
what's up, STS Nation? Welcome to another episode of Surviving the Survivor. It is the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime. It is not a tagline. We deliver daily, thanks in large part to Steve Cohen, otherwise known as Meave Moen, who books the majority of our guests. And today is an interesting panel, and I'm excited to get cracking. Quick programming note before we start. Following this show, excuse me, at 9 p.m. Eastern, we're going to do a special show about the fires raging in Los Angeles. As you all know, Space Coast on the West Coast is in LA. My mother-in-law's in LA. The COE is from LA. Many of her friends and family members have been displaced, and so it's very close to the heart. And we're going to donate all super chats during that show to a foundation in Los Angeles, probably the Los Angeles Fire Department Foundation, of which we have the president coming on, as well as a former wildfire firefighter and possibly a psychologist who herself was displaced and had to evacuate. So thinking of the people in Los Angeles, but we're going to do a show right now on what happened in Lecher County, Kentucky. There's a sheriff there by the name of Mickey Stines. He was actually the bailiff under a judge named Kevin Mullins for 10 years. Kevin Mullins, 54. Mickey Stines, I believe, is around 43 years old. Well, on September 19th of this past year, just a few months ago, Sheriff Stines opens fire, shooting Judge Kevin Mullins 8 times and killing him in his own judge's chamber. And the question now, and since then, has really been one word: why? What is the motive? That is the title of the thumbnail, and that's what we're going to try to dig down into tonight. Police did say it appeared that the two argued before the shooting, but they have not said why Sheriff Stines allegedly shot the judge. Here to welcome the best guests, and they're good ones tonight. You probably don't know the name, but you will after this. Ned Pillersdorf. He is an attorney in Lecher County. He represents a woman named Sabrina Atkins, and she could be a very key witness in this case. We'll get into who she is and why she could be so important. Ned does criminal defense work, and I think he said civil rights work. Am I correct about that, Ned?
That's correct.
Yeah. So welcome to the show. Then we've got General Mark Davidson. He started his career as a prosecutor straight out of law school back in '94 as an assistant DA in Tennessee, and eventually rose to the district attorney's office and was elected district attorney general, hence General Mark, in August of 2018. And last but not least, my friend Gavin Fish from Western PA. He began investigating unsolved crimes in 2019 when a friend suggested it might be a fun idea to create a YouTube channel. And he, like myself, have been bitten by the bug. And as you know, Gavin has closely followed the Ellen Greenberg case, which is something that is near and dear to both of our hearts. So we're going to continue to work on that as well. So before we even get started, Ned, I understand you live in Lecher County. Is that right?
Actually, I live in an adjoining county, Floyd County.
Well, you're in Floyd County, but Lecher County, let's go there because that's where this crime happened. This is a very kind of rural area, part of Appalachia, I believe. Just paint the picture of Lecher County.
Yeah, I've been a criminal defense lawyer in Appalachia for about 43 years. I've tried a number of cases in Lecher County. It's one of the poorest counties in the nation. It's on the Virginia border, very geographically isolated. And it's a county where everybody knows everybody. And the most recognizable people in every East Kentucky county is the sheriff and the judge. And in Lecher County, you had one sheriff, who's now in jail, and one locally elected district judge, Kevin Mullins, who is now deceased. So I'm well familiar with both of them, and well familiar with this John Grisham story. Who could have made up these unbelievable facts?
Right.
So I know Gavin just had on Gavin, I don't want to butcher her name, so please tell me her YouTube channel and her names. I want to give her some credit here.
Elizabeth Jones, she has a channel called Hillbilly Crime that she's building up pretty rapidly now. She's right there in Lecher County.
Yeah, and she was, she is investigating this case. Ned, just back to you for a minute. She calls the sheriff, because I was watching Gavin's interview with her today on Gavin's channel, which is Gavin Fish, Fish, like the creature. But Ned, to you, she's calling him Mickey and calling the judge Kevin. How well did you know these two people?
Well, I knew Miss Jones. She was my client. I was familiar with Judge Mullins. I realize he is deceased, but my experience with him as part of my representation of Sabrina Atkins, and due to one hearing in which I asked him to recuse, I basically declined to go back to Judge Mullins' court. It was actually related to this. To put it in context, I represented Sabrina Atkins and another woman who is now deceased. They basically alleged that a deputy named Ben Fields was sexual extortion to have sex with them. They were an ankle bracelet. Sabrina actually, we alleged in the civil rights lawsuit we filed that she actually was forced to have sex in the judge's chambers with the bailiff Ben Fields, who has since, by the way, pled guilty to at least sexual extortion of 3 different women. And what happened with myself and Judge Mullins was, when I first filed the civil case, it was before the criminal case started, the lawsuit we filed was pretty sweeping and was a pretty damning, I guess, indictment of Lecher County officials. I will add that they've denied the allegations. But I did ask Judge Mullins to recuse. They actually charged Sabrina with bail jumping when she cut off the sex. And the quid pro quo was, you don't have to pay the $300, $350 a month for the ankle bracelet if you have sex with me. And at one point, they actually pimped her out to one of his friends. And so actually, they charged Sabrina with bail jumping. And I appeared in front of Judge Mullins on the felony bail jumping charge, and I asked him to recuse. And he reluctantly did so, but it was an uncomfortable hearing. And after that, I basically declined to go back to his court.
We're gonna circle back because Ned just put a lot out there, and again, this client of his could be a very key witness. Was the second client, who's now deceased, is that Jennifer Hill?
That's correct. She died after we filed the lawsuit.
And she also alleged that the same deputy, Ben Fields, coerced her to having sex, this time in his cruiser or his car.
That's correct. And it was a third woman who's not in the lawsuit. The reason we know what happened was that was part of the indictment Fields pled guilty to.
All right, so let's go back to what we know. This is you heard Ned say it, straight out of a John Grisham novel, really a sordid tale, disturbing. I don't want to play the video, but I hope this isn't the video. Let's see here. Yeah, this is just the shot here. And it's interesting. And one thing I learned in listening to Gavin's show is there's still smoking allowed in this courthouse. And if you look, not to make light of it, but if you look at Judge Kevin Mullins' right hand, you can see he's got a cigarette butt between his index finger and middle finger. Now, this is just moments before, obviously, Mickey Stines, the sheriff, has words with Judge Mullins and then pumps 8 rounds into him, killing him. This is literally the last moments of his life. Jamie Wallace with a comment here talking about Ned. That's the best lawyer in Eastern Kentucky, if not the whole damn state. You can trust him with anything in your case, be it legal, civil, whatever. Ned has got your back. He's a hell of a dude. There you go. That's quite an endorsement. And I can tell that he is no nonsense right off the top. So, General, to you, what we do know here, and then we'll circle back to what we are trying to figure out. But the charges here: one count of murder of a public official. It is a death penalty eligible case. As I said, Sheriff Stines was Judge Mullen's bailiff for 10 years. Let's hold it right there. Death penalty eligible. I mean, he did shoot a government official, a judge here. Do you think, what's your gut tell you here? They're going to go after the death penalty in this case, or is it going to end up being some sort of insanity defense, and he might get off a bit easier than we all might think?
Well, it's possible you could see both. This is an execution of an elected judge, which is extremely serious. So I would anticipate the state is very strongly considering filing a death notice in this case. And, there can be several reasons you would do that. One, if there are aggravating factors that apply and make it death eligible, which this charge is, that's a good technical reason to do it. There are strategic reasons to do it. The video, we watched that at the preliminary hearing, and it's chilling. So this appears to be premeditated. It's obviously an execution. So I'm sure the state is giving some strong consideration to that. But at the same time, you're almost certainly going to have some discovery going on here in this case between the defense and the state. We heard what I would say was the initial beginning at the preliminary hearing of a defense of severe emotional distress based on some allegations that the judge was involved in some inappropriate relationship with the sheriff's daughter. So I think you got two things going on at the same time there. The defense is probably going to be trying to build up its case and share that with the state. The state, meanwhile, is going to be pressing back probably with the evidence they have that they think supports a murder conviction and possibly a death sentence.
Gavin, to you, as journalists, you and I'm kind of baffled by the fact that this happened on September 19th, and it's still very fuzzy as to what happened and what's the motive. And hopefully we'll get a little bit clearer picture with Ned here, because I have a feeling he knows obviously a lot more than the three of us do. But are you surprised that this happened on September 19th? You're looking at it right here. This is literally an absolute execution. I mean, there's no other way to say it. Surreal photo. When you think about this, he's smoking a cigarette. He will never be on this earth again, at least not in this form, right after this still shot. So are you surprised, Gavin, that this that we still don't really know why?
Yeah, I watched the preliminary hearing, and obviously, preliminary hearings are there to just basically establish probable cause to hold the case over for court, right? So it's not like the prosecution is going to put every piece of evidence out that they have, and nor have they built their entire case. Yeah, it was awfully shocking to me that there was a video of the sheriff gunning down a judge in his chambers. The thing about this still shot that strikes me is that Ned's client, Ms. Adkins, she alleges in the lawsuit that they filed that she has seen video of what she called, I think she said they were upper people, or they were powerful people in the county, including by name Judge Mullins, sexually abusing basically women in his chambers. And when she was asked by the Attorney General's office what his chambers looked like, she was able to describe that quilt. It was she's an impressive person, I have to say. She's the courage and the bravery that both Ms. Hill and Ms. Adkins have displayed to bring really, really to level some serious accusations against those that are in power in Lecher County. I mean, that's an amazing amount of courage. And I think there has been a lot of speculation, including on the stand in the preliminary hearing, about Judge Mullins having an inappropriate relationship with the daughter of Sheriff Stines. I'm not sure which way, if that's true or not. But what I do understand is that prior to this, within the day or two prior to this, Sheriff Stines was deposed in the lawsuit that Mr. Pillersdorf and his clients filed against Sheriff Stines, Deputy Sheriff Ben Fields, and the company that provided the ankle monitors. So, I mean, I think that he was under probably a lot of distress at the time.
Yeah, I want to get to the day of and back to Ned in a moment. But first, again, in this frame, you see right before 8 shots are fired into the judge. It's important to note that Kevin Mullins, the judge, he has 2 minor daughters who I'm sure are suffering. And as you just heard Gavin say, Sheriff Mickey Stines, who resigned immediately after this happened, he has a 17-year-old daughter, and there's been some talk about maybe the judge was potentially or possibly involved with that daughter. We'll get to Ned on that in a minute. But General, back to you. The defense has already publicly come out for Sheriff Mickey Stines, and they say this should be a manslaughter case, and they use the phrase extreme emotional disturbance. Are they already setting the table for either an insanity defense or a heat of the moment? What does that indicate to you?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what they're doing. If you look at Kentucky Code annotated 507.030, manslaughter in the first degree, that provides that you intend to cause the death of another person, and you do so, but it does not constitute murder because you act under the influence of extreme emotional disturbance. So that's a pretty large downward departure from murder in Kentucky, which carries 20 to 50 years. Manslaughter in the first degree carries 10 to 20 years. So I think we already saw at the preliminary hearing the beginnings of this type of defense, and I'm sure they're trying to develop that through discovery and other means, communications with the state as the case progresses in a circuit court.
By the way, I got to give a shout out to Allison Adams. If you're here, you're watching, just got the little thing that you sent me, and it's a big thing, and I love it, and I will show it to STS Nation. I was going to bring it to the studio. I'll give you guys a hint. It has to do with Fred and Ethel, my 2 pups, and it's pretty amazing. I always say best guest, better community, and you guys are legitimately the best community in all the YouTubes, not just true crime. So detectives, so the shooting obviously happened in Chambers. We're looking at this picture again. The town is Whitesburg, which is within Lecher County. It happened again back on September 19th. And then the grand jury indicted the sheriff roughly 2 months after that. Now, Ned, to you, detective, I've got a lot of questions for you, Ned. So detectives investigating the case have confirmed that Sheriff Stines did try to call his daughter on Judge Mullins' phone as well as his own phone prior to this. Do we know the time frame? Do you know anything more about the context of this?
Just the information from their preliminary hearing. And Whitesburg, even though it's a small town, they've got a really excellent newspaper, the Mountain Eagle, that's done some really good reporting. What I suspect is going on, I don't think they're going to go for a manslaughter, extreme emotional disturbance defense for the following reason. One, that's a 10 to 20, and because a gun was involved, you serve 85%. And basically, Stines, I'm not his criminal defense attorney. I'm not particularly sympathetic to him. I've sued him twice. But I think it's going to be more of a time to kill defense. And the reason I say that is after the preliminary hearing, Stines is represented by fine criminal defense lawyers, familiar with him. And they did make this perplexing comment that the shooting was basically that the lawsuit I was involved in was front and center to their defense, whatever those words mean. And so, I mean, there's really two schools of thought. There's no question what happened. The question is, why did he do it? Did he do it because Judge Mullins was involved in some outrageous activity? And then you have almost what we call a jury nullification defense. Or was it because Mullins was going to report Sheriff Stines for some bad activity, which would make the case against Sheriff Stines even that much worse? So it was perplexing where it's going. The prosecutor did call me, and it was odd. He interviewed me almost as a witness because, to put this in context, we filed a lawsuit against Ben Fields, and we named Sheriff Stines as the defendant in the theory that he knew or should have known that there was all this sexual exploitation of these ankle bracelet women going on. Right after we filed the lawsuit, the Attorney General office came and interviewed my client, and my client showed all the text messages between her and Bailiff Fields, or the guy who ran the ankle bracelet, which left no doubt there was a improper sexual relationship. Thereafter, the Attorney General's office, and I praise them for this, they did indict Fields and eventually got a guilty plea. What happened on Monday of the week where Mullins was shot, he was shot on Thursday, Stines was in my office along with my co-counsel, and my co-counsel took the deposition, and he was acting oddly. And the prosecutor in the case, who's from another county, called me up and was inquiring as to what was Stines' demeanor. And what I have said to him and the national media, if you watch the interesting initial appearance of Stines when he was in the Leslie County Jail, it was an odd appearance before a judge. The judge asked him direct questions. There were long pauses. It was kind of tense. And it's not typical behavior for a sheriff who's been sued. I mean, I filed other civil rights lawsuits. I've sued sheriffs before, and they're usually talkative, gregarious, combative. That was not Stines' demeanor on that Monday. And when I heard the shocking news on Thursday, the first thought I had was, is this related to my lawsuit? Now, in fairness to Stines and the civil defendants, they've denied the allegations. And Stines, in his deposition, denied any knowledge that Fields was engaging in this sexual exploitation of these women. So that's kind of put it in context. By the way, the comment about what my client, Sabrina Atkins, said, when she said she saw a video of Mullins acting sexually inappropriately with apparently a female criminal defendant, that's actually not in the lawsuit. Where that came up was, and our prosecutor friend here would understand this, after we filed the civil lawsuit, they did what's called a proffer of Miss Atkins. So this is after the lawsuit's filed, but before Fields gets indicted. And what a proffer is, basically the Attorney General investigator said, all right, Miss Atkins, I'm recording this, but we want to hear everything you know. Double hearsay is okay. Rumors are okay. So that interview was recorded. And that recorded has since been put in the possession of the national media. They did an open records request to the Attorney General's office. And the reason the Attorney General's office released it is, as I've indicated, is the Bailiff Fields pled guilty to several felony charges. He's actually already served his sentence and is out.
Yeah, he is out. So again, a lot on the table there, and I need to go back and break it down. The comment here from our friend LeMace up in Toronto, I think the whole reason we're hearing almost next to nothing about this case is likely because of how many higher ups / those in power positions are linked to the S abuse, keeping it hush hush. I mean, General, speak to this. I mean, you're from a rural area of Kentucky, five counties, I believe, that you have jurisdiction over, and Ned is obviously from somewhat rural area of Kentucky, and so you have Tennessee and Kentucky. I mean, I don't know how to ask this gently, but is the law upheld differently where everyone seems to know everybody? The judges know each other, the bailiffs know each other. I mean, this is a real small town in Letcher County. Is it possible that this is, number one, being kept quiet, like La Mesa is saying, because they're higher ups, or is it just such an intimate community that Judge Mullins and Sheriff Stines crossed each other's path and literally crossed each other, and that's why he turned on them?
It sounds to me like the latter is probably more accurate. We're in West Tennessee. We have a pretty rural district, probably not quite as rural as this Kentucky county, but nonetheless, we take some pains to make sure that the public, our constituents, don't perceive that we treat anybody any differently when there are allegations of criminal conduct and investigations that produce evidence of that, and then charging. I would almost say, if anything, the higher up you are, maybe the less favorable prosecutor might view the case, just because of your position of trust. So if you're a judge or a sheriff and you're committing bad acts, that's going to get a lot of attention, a lot of scrutiny, and you're going to be in a spotlight prosecuting the case, and you're not going to do anything that creates the impression that you're giving out favors, right? So, plus you also have here the state attorney general is involved in this case. They're actually part of the prosecution here. So to me, that lessens the likelihood that there's anything nefarious going on as far as not hearing much about the case. That office is going to be a state office a bit removed from the locality here. And Ned will know more about all of that than I do. But, in Tennessee, if you had the state attorney general involved, that would certainly create the appearance from a prosecution standpoint that you have an unbiased prosecution in place. So, this case is still in a pretty early stage in circuit court as far as getting discovery going. I don't recall what the trial date is. Maybe another one of the guests knows that.
Gavin, do you know?
I actually don't know what it's scheduled for.
I don't know.
I don't think that it will make the schedule. I think it will be rescheduled.
Yeah.
It always is.
Probably.
Yeah. So Ned, back to you before I go back to Gavin here. Wouldn't law enforcement know there were cameras in the judge's chamber? There was another question. When did they install cameras? He had to know that there was a camera in there. He basically gave himself up. Are you curious about this? Do you know when cameras were installed and why?
According to the local newspaper, we alleged in our lawsuit that the sexual exploitation of Miss Atkins occurred in the chambers. I understood the cameras were installed after the lawsuit, and from what I was reading in the local newspaper, it was because of that. But to be clear, it is really unusual to have cameras in the chambers of a judge in Kentucky. Where cameras usually are, they're obviously in every courtroom, and they're always in what's called the conference room, where you have hearings. Why there were cameras in the judge's chambers is a really good question. I don't know the answer to that. Although that was certainly, a prominent part of the lawsuit we filed, that the sex was occurring in the judge's chambers. And I'm sure the theory then was that that was a place where Fields knew he could have some privacy. And our lawsuit, generally says Stines, the sheriff, knew or should have known there was all this sexual extortion of these females. One thing I want to add, to the extent that I have an agenda and I'm hoping that some good come out of this unbelievable set of facts. What has dramatically changed in practicing criminal law in East Kentucky in my 43 years, if you walk into an Appalachian courtroom today, you will see something you did not see 40 years ago. You will see women all charged with just about all of them charged with drug charges. And what's happened is we've had a rapid expansion, which is a good thing, of drug courts and ankle bracelet programs. Unfortunately, the ankle bracelet programs, and especially, they're unsupervised. And I have no doubt that what happened to Miss Atkins, Miss Hill, and the other lady is not an isolated incident. Those women are easy prey for sexual exploitation.
Right.
Look what Fields did. And is there any doubt Fields did it? Well, once again, he pled guilty to multiple felonies. If you're in an ankle bracelet program, these women are poor, they're powerless. And the way the game is played in criminal courts, if you're a female defendant on drug court or ankle bracelet, you know that a simple phone call to the judge, hey, there's a violation of the ankle bracelet, hey, she tested positive, they know they're back in jail. So it was really easy for Fields to get away for basically the rape and the sex charges he pled guilty to. And what we're hoping with, that as a result of all this publicity, that people who run these programs are sensitive to the fact that how easy it is for women, and it's actually happened to some men too, are so ripe for sexual exploitation, just the nature of who the criminal defendants are in Kentucky courts today. I represent dozens of them. They're women, typically charged with methamphetamine. And if you go to a Kentucky criminal court, it's like a drug court. Can we get them into drug court today? Can we get them on an ankle bracelet? Can we get them into rehab? That's what's happening in every Appalachian criminal court today, which frankly I didn't see 42, 43 years ago when I started practicing.
Yeah. This question has come up from Maya Sorensen, who is an attorney like yourself, Ned. It is to you. What is a reason for omitting Judge Mullins from the initial lawsuit when the SA occurred in his chambers and he was the one who was engaged in the acts, allegedly? Curious.
When you file a lawsuit, you have to have a good faith belief. And Judge Mullins we did not have credible evidence to make the accusation. And in fairness to Judge Mullins, he's deceased. He's not here to defend himself. We thought the person who most likely knew and should have known would have been Stines. There are allegations in our civil suit. And once again, our civil suit is just our side. The other side defends us. That at one point, Jennifer Hill's boyfriend went to the sheriff's office in the morning and said, Fields is extorting my girlfriend for sex. Now, according to the affidavit of the witness, he claims he was pulled over later that day by Lecher deputy sheriffs, and it's sort of like an organized crime thing. They basically said, you need to shut up. Now, that's an allegation in our lawsuit. The other side's free to decide that. But that's kind of the atmosphere we're talking about. And like I said, to me, one of the most egregious things, one of the moments I won't forget, during the 4-hour interview of Miss Atkins, when she was talking about Fields, she talked about how the quid pro quo was, well, if you don't want to pay the fee this month, not only are you going to continue to have sex with me, but I got this elderly gentleman who's interested in you. And he basically pimped her out. And I'll just never forget that moment during the 4-hour proffer where Miss Atkins just totally broke down, emotional. I call it the pimping part of the allegation. That's in the lawsuit. There was information came out in response to your viewer's question that Mullins may have been extorting sex from another woman defendant. Well, I don't represent her. And we basically had no evidence that we felt we had a good faith basis to accuse Mullins in the civil suit. By the way, the civil suit is still pending. It's been held up. And in terms of the criminal case, they just appointed a judge actually from the other side of the state. And one of the interesting things the general may want to comment on, Stines, an attorney, said, I don't want to change the venue. I want to be tried in the county, which I think is, I think that means we're going to see some sort of jury nullification, time to kill defense, which is unusual. I mean, I tried high-profile cases in Lecher County. I think I've had 4 more cases in Lecher County, death penalty cases. It's an isolated county. And for a criminal defendant who's on tape shooting the sheriff saying, I want to be tried in Lecher County, means we may be in for an interesting ride.
Yeah.
Hey, Joel, can I ask a couple follow-up questions?
I was just going to say, Mark and Gavin, feel free to jump in. Go right ahead.
Okay. First off, I mean, Ned, I absolutely love you. That was fantastic. Mark, could you describe to us what a time to kill defense is? And then Ned, can you describe how Stines was acting oddly on the Monday before Judge Mullins was killed? And another quick question is, this whole county is like 5,000 people. It's 1,700 people in Whitesburg. This is a small place. Is that jail overcrowded due to, this drug epidemic? I know that's a lot of questions, but I'm just curious.
Let's go one at a time. So the first one was from Mark.
Yeah, what is a time to kill defense?
I'm gonna have to punt that to Ned. I'm not that familiar with that reference myself. I know that's a John Grisham reference.
Ned, what is it? Ned, what's the answer?
It's a John Grisham book and a movie where the African-American defendant is tried for killing the guy who raped his daughter. That's
Is that a newer version of To Kill a Mockingbird?
And it's the John Grisham book. It's really jury nullification.
Yeah.
In the real world of criminal defense, there's an expression I've heard in Kentucky courts for 43 years. There's just some people who did something that they need killing. They've done something.
Yeah.
Ned, let me jump in there. I don't mean to interrupt. I try not to, but let me just ask the question point blank. I mean, you just heard Gavin say Whitesburg has 1,700 people. It's a county of about 5,000 people. It's a small place. People know what's going on. Have you heard whispers that it was some sort of untoward relationship between Judge Mullins and Sheriff Stines' 17-year-old daughter? To me, that's the only thing that makes sense. Can you corroborate or, not corroborate it one way or the other?
We live in a different world with social media. And I'm hesitant to repeat some of the outrageous allegations I've heard. But to me, what tells volumes, Stines does not want to change a venue. He killed a judge in a small county.
On camera.
Will there be a change of venue? And it may be that enough people have heard these outrageous rumors about Judge Mullins, and in fact, he's not here to defend himself. But how many times in history has a criminal defendant said, I want to be tried in my home county, when the evidence that what he did is just so clear, which tells me, and even goes back to the criminal defense lawyer gave an interview right after, I guess, the arraignment, where he said that my lawsuit was front and center. My lawsuit alleges, and I've said this before, and I don't back down, the powers that be turned that courthouse into a brothel. Going back to the pimping example I mentioned, the sex in the judge's chambers, and we know of at least 3 women. So I don't think, going back, is this an extreme emotional disturbance defense? Like I say, that's 10 to 20 at 85%. Stines is not looked at healthy. He can't serve. Let's say he gets 15 years. Some might consider that a light sentence for shooting a judge 8 times. I don't think the guy lives 12 years in a Kentucky penitentiary. Really? 85%. Gets 20 years, 17 years. I think he's got to go. He's got to swing for the fences, go for sort of a jury nullification defense. A jury nullification defense, I'm sure the general knows this, is don't pay too much attention to the law, but maybe Mullins was engaged in some outrageous conduct that somehow this was justified. That defense works, by the way. I've had cases where the last murder case I tried, a juvenile shot his father, who basically the father was so abusive and outrageous and imprisoning and torturing everyone in the household. My defense was the 15-year-old did society a favor by finally stopping this outrageous abuse, and the prosecutor ended up dismissing the murder case.
Yeah. Ned, they've asked here, have either of the wives, Mickey Stines or Judge Mullins, I'm hearing that COE, but have either of the wives come out and publicly made any comments since this has happened?
Need to ask Gavin that. I mean, I've read media reports and they're all over the place.
Yeah. Gavin, do we know?
Not that I've seen, and I need to subscribe to the Mountain Eagle and
I was just going to
read
say,
what they're saying.
Me too. General, to you, I just want to move it along a little bit here, but you just heard Ned say that Sheriff Stines wants to be, former sheriff, ex-sheriff, wants to be tried in Lecher County. Is that up to the discretion of the defendant? Like, if the state wants to change a venue, does the defendant legally have the right to say, no, I want to keep it here?
That's ultimately a call for the judge presiding over the case, the defense, and Ned's right, that is highly unusual. Typically, when you have a case with this much publicity locally, across the state, and even nationally, you're going to see and expect the defense to file a motion for change of venue to get the case out of that local county or bring another jury in from somewhere else in the state and try to mitigate and minimize the exposure to the news and social media, and try to make sure you have a fair and impartial jury, right? I mean, that's the goal, is to seat a fair and impartial jury that can hear the case without any biases that would affect how they how they vote on the case when it comes time to go back to the jury room and deliberate. So I would consider it to be highly unusual to hear what Ned is talking about, which is that the defendant wants to oppose any move to change venue here. And typically that motion would come from the defense. It's pretty rare for the state to seek a change of venue. You might see that in that case. I think Ned's instincts here, based on his experience in Kentucky, are spot on. This sounds to me like the defense will swing for the fence. I still kind of stand by my theory that the defense wants to also shoot for a manslaughter. If the jury decides to convict him of something, the defense is going to say, well, the worst you should do is manslaughter here. This is not a murder. The judge was suffering from this emotional distress. But even better than that, you would try to get the jury, at least one member of the jury, to just ignore the law and vote with their gut, right? And you might even, in Tennessee, I've heard the term misdemeanor killing. Also heard the term, from the defense counsel, well, the defendant just deserved it. And sometimes juries will buy that. If you pound on the podium hard enough, and the judge gives you enough leeway to kind of slide that kind of argument in, all you need is one juror to either hang it or to vote not guilty and say, I just think that judge deserved to be killed, which is, that's a stretch to me, but we're going to have to wait and see what kind of facts come out here as this case makes its way to trial.
Yeah, again, like, I'm mystified that this much time has passed and we don't really know the answer yet. Inky Pinky, these questions are endless. Do you think Stines was trying to stop Mullins talking, or was he genuinely angry at being dragged into this by default, especially if he thought Mullins was somehow involved with his daughter? I mean, we don't know the answers, but we're trying to figure them out. Let me just walk us through, because we have some audio that I want to play. News Nation actually did some reporting on this, and I always like to give credit to other outlets. They reported that Sheriff Stines and his wife, quote unquote, had some sort of dispute the night before the judge was fatally shot. He actually, according to these reports, slept outside of the house that night. That's why you saw him out of uniform. You see him out of uniform in that still frame shot. There's a reporter for News Nation, a producer, who said that there's been some dispute from different sources about when it happened, but her sources are saying it was that night before the actual shooting, and he was in a great deal of distress. There was some sort of domestic dispute at home, and again, that's why he's in plain clothes, as you see here. If I can bring it up there, you see he's in plain clothes. So I'm going to bring that back down, and so let me play this. I'll be honest. I watched all this. I don't know which part of it, but let's watch this together. It is from News Nation, and here's some audio regarding this case.
Some videotapes of some stuff in the judge's chambers.
What kind of stuff?
Just with girls sexual and stuff.
What describe? Have you seen the videos?
I've seen one partly, just them having sex with girls for to be able to get out of jail.
Who was having sex?
Ben and just some higher ups up there.
Who?
The judge and.
You saw the video.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What did you see on the video? I mean, you.
I mean, I've seen Judge Wallen having sex with a girl.
Who was the girl?
I don't know, because I don't know a lot of people from over there.
Where was it at?
In his office, in the judge's chambers.
Is that the same place that you were meeting Ben? Is that how you know it was a judge in chambers? And this was Judge who?
Mullins.
There you go. I'm going to play it one more time. This is Ned's client, correct, Ned? This is Sabrina Atkins at this deposition, I believe. Let's play it one more time, and then we'll get Ned's take and the other guest. Hang on one sec, Ned. I may have... Yeah, go ahead, Ned.
To be clear, this is an audio of a proffer Ms. Atkins gave to the Attorney General's office after the lawsuit was filed, but before Fields was indicted. The use of the word Ben, that's Ben Fields, the defendant. Mm-hmm. So this was an audio that the Attorney General's investigator recorded when he interviewed my client. And I said this was a proffer, and she was encouraged to say everything she could possibly think of that might be related. This did not occur during a court session.
Yeah. By the way, Ned, I got to ask you, this guy, Ben Fields, a deputy accused of the sex crime, and he was convicted. It happened in 2022. I think he was convicted later on. How is he out already? Isn't it supposed to be
what happened was after Fields was indicted, they venued the case to, they didn't venue the case. They had a special judge from Plea County. He ordered what's called a criminal mediation. And at the mediation, they agreed to, I think, a 7-year sentence, maybe a 6-year sentence, where he would serve 6 months in the county jail and be probated. And I believe there was a condition that he register as a sex offender. So that's why he's out. It was a negotiated.
And he has made that registration. You can look.
Yeah,
it up.
It was done in the context of just about every criminal case in Kentucky these days. The judges send us to what are called criminal mediations, and Miss Atkins consented to that sentence. What we were interested in was that we did not want a no contest plea. We wanted Fields to admit he did what we accused him, and he actually pled guilty to allegations involving a client we didn't even represent, a third woman. And of course, one of the problems with the criminal case was Jennifer Hill, who I also represented, she died of a drug overdose in the interim. So that would have frustrated the case against Fields, which I think is one explanation why the plea bargain was reached. I want to be clear, I've had my differences with the Kentucky Attorney General office. But, generally when I file a civil rights complaint alleging some type of corruption, the Attorney General's office doesn't want to rush in and help me. But in this case, they did. Matt Easter was the investigator for the AG. That's his voice on the tape. They indicted Mr. Fields. and secured guilty pleas, and not a no contest plea. A guilty plea means he had to get up under oath and tell the judge, I did this. I sexually extorted this woman in the judge's chambers. I did this. And actually, one of the counts he pled guilty to, which is interesting, if not funny, was perjury. The perjury was he swore out a warrant that claimed Sabrina Atkins bail jumped. Well, she didn't bail jump. She said no more sex. So he charged her with bail jumping. So, the Attorney General office, I give them high marks for coming in and doing justice. People can argue he maybe got more time, maybe he should have been probated. But I don't want to question what's arrived at, especially at a mediation. Criminal mediations are a new thing, and I think they generally produce very just results.
Yeah. Ned, from Jason Truth, who's in here often with the truth, with Judge Mullins now deceased, will his skeletons in the closet and others ever be found out? If he was, in fact, doing unsavory things, and that is just an accusation, nothing beyond that. Do you think, though, in a county like Lecher County, that it will eventually float to the surface?
Yeah, I would punt that question to his criminal defense lawyers. My speculation is that's where they're going, because they don't have anywhere else to go. And it may be that Stines just shot out the judge because the judge was going to report some corruption of Stines, and that it was a true egregious killing with a bad motive. Who knows? But my suspicion is that the defense lawyers are going to go with this time to kill defense, that Mullins was engaged in some conduct that somehow justified him being shot 8 times.
I personally can't see any other reason. I mean, I can't see him getting that enraged over the Ben Fields, the deputy situation, unless he felt unusually embarrassed or humiliated. You never really know what's going on inside. Ida Shaw, JD, friend of the show, friend of ours, gifting 10 Surviving the Survivor memberships. Thank you for that. We appreciate it. I'm going to play this piece of sound one more time now that we've got the proper context. This is Ned's clients, Sabrina Atkins, who basically sort of blew the whistle on this deputy, but then said she saw the judge doing things, I believe, in his chamber and other people potentially.
He does have some videotapes of his chambers.
What kind of stuff?
Just with girls, sexual and stuff.
What describe? Have you seen the videos?
I've seen one partly, just him having sex with girls for the food to get out of jail.
Video.
Who's having sex?
Ben and just some higher ups up there.
Who?
The judge and.
You saw the video.
Yeah.
What did you see on the video? I mean,
I've seen Judge Mullins having sex with a girl.
Who was the girl?
I don't know, because I don't know a lot of people from over there.
Where was it at?
In his office, in the judge's chambers.
Is that the same place that you were meeting Ben? Is that how you know it was a judge in chambers? And this was Judge who?
Mullins.
And then again, Ned is quoted in this particular article. The question was posed, did it have anything to do with the shooting? I don't know, Ned Pillersdorf says, but he says you have to wonder. Now, he was acting really erratically. I'm going to play that sound in a moment. We've got some body cam. But Ned, back to you. You said, you deposed him 3 days before this shooting, and you yourself said he was acting weird, acting unusually tense. Can you describe that a little bit more? In what sense?
Well, it was a civil deposition in my office. My co-counsel actually conducted it. And like I say, he had unusual demeanor. Usually when you depose a public official accused of some sort of corruption, civil rights violations, they're talkative, they're combative, and he would be asked perfunctory questions, and it would be long pauses. He was probably in my office 7 hours. The deposition only went on for 3 or 4 hours. Numerous breaks were taken, but I just thought he had an odd demeanor. It was a tense. It was not a friendly deposition. We're saying, Sheriff, you basically allowed your bailiff to raped these women, sexually extorted them, and you knew or should have known and did nothing about it. He denied that. So, but his demeanor was not what you would expect. And the best way I can explain it is, after they played the video of his initial appearance, it was the same odd demeanor. The judge would ask him direct, perfunctory questions, and there were these long pauses, which you would not expect from a judge from a sheriff who's used to appearing in court, used to interacting with judges. There was something going on. And like I say, the prosecutor, the Commonwealth attorney assigned to the case, he actually called me up and asked me the same question you just asked me. What was his demeanor like during the deposition? And doubling back, I still want to be fair to the judge, the defendants in my civil case. Stines denied all the allegations. He said he was unaware Fields was doing any of this stuff. But I thought his demeanor was odd, and it was just not typical for a typical civil rights deposition. And I thought his appearance before the judge was just bizarre. It was just very strange, and it was just you just don't see that. I mean, you occasionally see that from occasional criminal offenders, but not from a sheriff who's used to being in a courtroom.
Ned, by the way, I know you're new to our show, and hopefully we'll have you back soon, but we have the COE. She is the chief of everything. She's my wife, and I can hear your COE throwing you some words and correcting some of the things you're saying. I think that was her laughing. So tell the COE over there that we appreciate it. We appreciate that. And
well, you are correct. By the way, I'm also Mr. Janet Stumbo. And Janet is the coal miner's daughter who was the first woman elected to the Kentucky Supreme Court.
Wow. I'll tell you what, I'm going to have our COE send your COE a COE t-shirt. Okay. I think that's the deal.
And she's quick to correct me also.
Trust me, I know. So I would make a joke, but it's predominantly women that watch, so I will save myself the agony of all the hate mail. Aunt Nancy here. Sheriff Stein's daughter was the straw that broke the camel's back. Again, we don't know for sure. We think maybe. One of the questions, and there's a little bit more sound that I want to get through, General, to you, is this is a guy that in cold blood appears to have murdered a judge. How come the feds can't take on the case and change the venue if they want to?
Yeah, murder is primarily a state crime, and 99% of murders are prosecuted in state court, I would say. The feds usually are looking for what they call a federal nexus. Typically it involves a commerce clause, movement of items across state lines like drugs, carjacking because you're using stealing a car, moving across state lines, firearms violations. But when it comes to homicide, unless it's a carjacking, typically that's usually going to be left to the state. And the states typically have severe enough penalties for that crime that there's not much of what we call a federal interest left for them to devote the resources to it. Now, if it's a civil rights case, that could be different. I'm not a federal prosecutor, but I do interact with them. But this really strikes me as a state case. And the state of Kentucky has the resources, and they have the penalties here to probably handle this without any attempt by the feds to get involved.
Just a friendly reminder, if you appreciate the content here, we've got the best guests in all of true crime. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe. And we've got a Patreon page that really goes a long way. Any little bit helps us get better content, and it's COE is updating that Patreon page constantly. Abby Taha here, our friend. My vocabulary has grown since subscribing to STS. We'll have you take your SATs again, so that's a good thing. And a reminder, coming up at the top of the hour, well, not the top of the hour because it's 1 minute to the top of the hour, coming up at 9 o'clock Eastern time, we're doing a special show having nothing to do with true crime, but the horrors of Mother Nature. LA is burning to the ground, and all the super chats in the next show are going to go towards the Los Angeles Fire Department foundation, of which we have the president coming on. So trying to do our little tiny bit to help an otherwise awful situation. The COE and Space Coast. Space Coast lives in LA currently. He's okay. And the COE grew up there. So she got a lot of friends who are in a lot of tough spots. So we are thinking of all of them. So right after this happened, he basically gives himself up to deputies. He's arrested and he's taken on a ride. And they're, what's up, Abby Crossing? 12 months feels like a lifetime in the best way. Good catch there. Super sticker from Lori K. They say that Sheriff Stines was acting very paranoid. This is some of the body cam footage. He is asking some strange questions, acting a little oddly. We'll watch this and one other, and we'll get the reactions, a few more things, and we'll wrap it up.
Oh, now, guys. I was asking why you done it. Was it over your family? Come on now, guys. What are you doing? I was just talking to you.
Just very quickly, I mean, it's sort of obvious, but that deputy is driving, and he's asking Sheriff Stines, why'd you do it? And Sheriff Stines replies, man, what are you guys doing?
Asking, was it something to do with your family or anything like that?
The trooper, after several minutes, tries to ask Stines some more questions.
Was it something to do with your family? Something happened? Something did happen, you know. I mean, it'd be good to let us know. Why did you want to talk to your daughter while ago, Nick? Something did happen that, you know, involved something that could help you when you go to trial and get a fair trial. Letting us know kind of what's going on, what led.
So, General, to you, I mean, he's trying his best as deputy to try to figure out what was the motive, and you can hear, and it gets a little more odd, I think, in the next clip, but you can hear the sheriff trying to elicit basically a confession or a motive. Was the sheriff doing the right things in the right way? He didn't get the answer he wanted.
I understood from the video that this was law enforcement from some other agency.
It was the state police.
State police. And, you know, when you listen to that, it sounds like he's trying to encourage the sheriff to offer up, you know, to tell us what happened. What's your defense? You need to help yourself here, right? However, that's a bit unusual. And when the sheriff's only response that I heard is, hey, guys, what's going on here? The sheriff's in custody at this point in time. So he's Miranda would apply here. I don't know if he'd been Mirandized or not. If he had, fine. They can ask him questions and he can answer or not answer or invoke his right to not answer and ask for an attorney. I didn't hear that. So maybe they did Mirandize him. We didn't hear that video or audio rather. But clearly they are seeking to extract information from him in a friendly kind of let us help you kind of way, which can be an investigative technique. I didn't hear much reply from the sheriff other than his kind of protest about, hey guys, what's going on here? He's saying, y'all are trying to interrogate me, right? But it's a very friendly type interrogation. Again, that's a tactic that can be used. The lack of any response from the sheriff, I can't tell if he's so upset that he can't respond or if he's just wary of what they're doing and doesn't want to respond.
Yeah, smart enough not to incriminate himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Shout out, by the way, to Annalie Finch, a friend of the show, who just gave us a super chat. And that, of course, was Anjanette Levy of Law and Crime, who was voicing that. I want to get to the day of what happened, but first, this is the second part with Anjanette of this body cam footage. Here we go.
Me pick your leg up, my brother?
Y'all got carbon monoxide in here.
Oh.
Come on now.
So I just want to set up the context again here. They're obviously bringing him to another jail. At one point on the ride, we don't have this part. He's saying, "You're taking me to the forest. Why are you doing that?" Which is a little odd. And now he's talking about he feels like he's about to be poisoned, presumably with carbon monoxide. So he's a little out of it, to say the least.
Come on. I can't sit like this.
Slide sideways.
I can't. Come on now. Be fair to me.
We're being good to you, brother. You stick your leg up in there.
Come on now, guys. Please don't do this to me. Please don't do this to me. Please.
You want to scoot on over a little bit to the left?
Come on now.
Try to scoot on over a little bit more. That way we don't hit you. Can you go any bit farther? I just won't hit you with the door. Put your knee in there, my friend.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Bates. Hey, Bates. Can we loosen this up a little or give the window down?
I'm sorry?
Can we loosen this up a little? Be fair to me, man.
I got some air. I'll crack the window for you, but I can turn the air on back here. Okay?
Yeah. Be fair to me now.
I promise, Nicky. I promise.
God, please.
I promise.
It's hot back here, man. I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
I'm the son of a psychiatrist and a social worker. I'm just talking head, otherwise pretty much an empty talking head. But Ned, what do you make of that? I mean, it sounds like he's having a bit of maybe a panic attack, an anxiety attack, or just as was otherwise described as being paranoid. It's definitely not quote unquote normal behavior. What do you make of this when you saw it for the first time?
I would assume it's just pure shock. I mean, he's in the custody of the Kentucky State Police. He's well familiar with the Kentucky State Police. And I think, suddenly he's in jail, charged with killing the judge. And you just go back to that video. Has that ever happened before, that we had a sheriff shoot a judge in a courthouse? This whole thing is just undescribable, inexplicable, and his behavior is, I think, odd. I don't know if that's the best word, but that video is certainly consistent with it. I don't even want to speculate some sort of panic attack or just daze or just a man in shock.
Yeah. Nancy Drew, the famous author here, has a follow-up question. Do one of your guests know if Sheriff Stines' family is supporting him in jail? Do you know, Ned, is the daughter there to see him? Is the wife going? Again, there was this talk that they had a falling out, he and the wife, the night before. Do you know the kind of the condition of the relationship now?
According to media reports, they were there for his arraignment. But obviously, Sheriff Stines' family doesn't consulted me. I sued him. But according to media reports, the answer to the question is yes, to the extent they appeared at his arraignment.
Ned, let me ask you a question that might sound callous. I don't mean it to, but again, very small town, rural area. Have you ever, not just this case, but in other cases, have you ever feared for your safety going after people in positions of power, which is what you do?
Probably. I've probably tried 30, 40 murder cases, 6, 7, 8 death penalty cases. And I don't know that I personally feared. I've certainly been in tense situations. I've been in courtrooms where there was a riot after a verdict. And generally, what you generally have in a high-profile murder case, the judge will have the defendant's family sit on one side of the courtroom, the people sympathetic to the prosecution on the other side of the courtroom, and there would be a lot of security. And there would always be a pronouncement, no matter what the verdict is today, folks. Nobody says anything, and they'll make one side leave while the other side wait. I've seen that, dozens of times. But Lecher County is an isolated county. There's actually a book out Another high-profile murder case had a Lecher County called a dark and bloody ground, which was also a death penalty case. I represented the one defendant who did not get the death penalty. But if you read that book, you get a pretty good sense. And what's interesting, doubling back to the change of venue, if there was ever a case that should have been venued, that dark and bloody ground case involved the stabbing death of a prominent doctor by these three defendants who actually got to kill people in other counties. Should have been a change of venue. We didn't have it. We had to death qualify a jury for several days. One of the interesting things is, I know you like to have lawyers on there talk about cases they won. We talked about a case I lost. Can the government get a change of venue? The Sixth Amendment says you have the right to be tried where the crime occurred, the district where the crime occurred. The key word is district. That goes back to the Declaration of Independence, by the way, where the people who wrote the Declaration of Independence was talking about being tried in unusual places.
Right.
I represented a public official in Floyd County, and the Commonwealth sought a change of venue to another county, and I objected to it, and I lost. And there's a bad published opinion that says the Commonwealth is entitled to a change of venue. That district means federal district, and that I was wrong. It doesn't mean state district. What I fully predict will happen is the Commonwealth, in my opinion, will seek a change of venue. The fact that a judge was appointed from the other side of the state, I suspect that motion will be granted. And someone may look at this video and say, boy, was Ned wrong. I predict the case will be venued out of Lecher County over the defendant's objection. And how far away they venue, it's a good question. But that's just my prediction. And once again, I'm really struck with, I don't know if it's ever happened before, where a whole high-profile defendant said, I want to be tried in my home county. I don't think that's I don't ever remember that happening before.
Yeah. There's a lot about this case, I think, that people, can't equate with another previous case. By the way, I'd love to cover this case. Is there a motel, Ned, in Lecher County that Gavin and I can
right across the street from the courthouse?
Oh, there we go. Gavin, you and I are gonna have to cover this trial together. John,
we get one of those rooms with 2 beds, Joel.
I love it. Looking forward to that, actually. So the day of, a couple things I just want to run through here. Both the day this happened, September 19th, Sheriff Stines, Judge Mullins, they eat lunch together. There are other people at the lunch. It's been widely reported that was the case, and everything seemed quote unquote normal. Then Sheriff Stines wants to bring something up, but the judge, according to people who saw this, suggested speaking in his chamber after lunch, and we know the rest of the story. I mean, then he ends up in the judge's chamber and unloads his weapon on him. Gavin, do you or the hillbilly YouTuber, again, I apologize, I'm terrible with names, so please apologize to her for me, but who's done an excellent job on this, do either of you have any insight as to how you could have a seemingly perfectly normal lunch and then go and fire 8 rounds into somebody?
Yeah, I can't imagine that Judge Mullins would have invited Sheriff Stines back to his chamber if he felt he was in danger, right? It was probably completely out of his imagination, the capacity of his imagination to think that Sheriff Stines would draw his service weapon and fire at him 8 times. In that video, we see him crawling around under his desk, trying to escape, right? Trying to hide himself from multiple shots. And Sheriff Stines was determined. He moved himself around. I mean, talk about the, I don't know what the legal definition of malice aforethought is, but boy, did that shooting seem full of malice. And Sheriff Stines knew what he was doing. I mean, he repositioned himself at least 3 times. So And that's what Elizabeth told me that is circulating around town is that what you just said, that they were at a lunch. Sheriff Stines wanted to talk. Judge Mullen says, let's take it up in chambers. I have a quick qualification or a quick question, actually.
Gavin, before you get there, look at this. Linda Mon. Wait, is Gavin single?
Am I single? No,
Gavin,
I
Gavin
have a
is
chief of everything as well.
I need to send her a shirt. Gavin is married for 25 years. I didn't even know that. You have 5 kids?
Yeah, our oldest just got married. We have 6 now. We claim 6 now.
Wow.
We love our son.
Mazel tov. I can't believe that. You
Thank
look like
you.
you're 25. But go ahead, Gavin.
The allegation that Ms. Adkins made in that proffer with Detective Easter, she specifically said that she had seen the video and she named the person who had the video. What I'm curious about, Ned, is has that video ever been recovered by law enforcement? Did that ever come up in Ben Field's, criminal, trial or mediation or whatever?
My answer is double, triple hearsay. I understand it has not. What was going on there is cash bond is a controversial topic in the criminal courts I practice in. And we generally, once again, Lecher County is one of the poorest counties in this nation. Just about 98% of people arraigned on criminal charges in the Appalachian courts I practice and qualify for public defender. And so that's kind of the root of what Ms. Fields, what Ms. Atkins was suggesting was the extortion. That have sex with the judge, you get out. If in fact, and this is pure speculation, if he was doing that, and that's an if, he's not here to deny it, that's part of the time to kill defense. I don't know if that's true or not. Ms. Atkins says she saw a video. The video is not of the woman who supposedly was having sex with Mullins, but of a connection of that woman who had the video. But if I'm trying this case, one of the questions I might ask is, any of the jurors seen The Time to Kill, the movie? Anybody have any thoughts about that movie?
You're saying that in the voir dire process, is that right?
In the voir dire, I'd be curious about that. I mean, that is a movie that Grisham makes the point, and it happens in the real world, where somebody is clearly killed. It doesn't appear to be self-defense. It goes back to the burning bed cases, the original spouse abuse cases I used to do, where the spouse, after years of abuse, burns the abuser in the bed. I did a lot of those cases. I did the first one of the first cases I argued in the Kentucky Supreme Court was the Mary Rose case, where I argued that I should have been able to get in all of the evidence of the abuse this woman had before she shot him under the Christmas tree on Christmas Day. I tried to get what's called spouse abuse syndrome evidence before the jury, and that's a defense. I mean, those cases are out there. What we hope is that people like General Davidson will say, I'm going to have some prosecutor discretion here. Yeah, this may not be a clear case of self-defense, but there's something that goes on out there that I don't even know if justification is the right word. I'm just not going to prosecute this case, or I'm going to offer some misdemeanor charge. I think the last spouse abuse case I settled last year, same facts, horribly abusive husband, long history of beating his wife. She finally shoots him. And we actually pled her guilty to 6 months to serve for falsely reporting an incident, and that her initial first report was suggesting that it might have been a suicide. But basically, the prosecutor in that case said this guy was so abusive toward this woman, and we had videos. So that's where it's going. Now, in this particular case, I don't see a misdemeanor guilty plea. I see a trial. And I think they're going to have to shoot for the fences. Like I said, I don't see Stines pleading guilty to take the 10 to 20 years at 85%. The Kentucky legislature has raised those penalties, and the Kentucky Parole Board, if you use a gun, you're not getting out. You're serving a full sentence.
Wow, it's going to be fascinating to watch it play out. I don't know if this is a compliment or an insult to all of us. I like that it's all of us. So from Nap Connoisseur, this is an oddly soothing episode just due to the guests' voices and how they explain things.
I think somebody named Nap Connoisseur would be very qualified at what is soothing.
Actually, today's panel is the most soothing ever. Calm demeanor and intelligent convo. Thank you, Joel, best guest. Followed by this, is Gavin able to keep that calm, sweet, gentle demeanor with 6 kids? What's the answer?
Most of the time, sure. Yeah, I got good kids.
Yeah, it seems like good parent, good kids. That's usually the way it works. Unlike the Alexander brothers that we covered today. One final question, then we'll get final thoughts because everyone's got to get going. General, this is to you. So we heard in this body cam footage the sheriff basically saying nothing to the deputies when they asked why he shot the judge. At one point, he says that they're trying to kidnap my wife and kid. He also says, make sure there's no weapon in the back of the cruiser. You heard him talk about how hot it was. He says over and over, be fair to me. Carbon monoxide comes up. Come on now, make sure I get to the jail, because he thought he was being taken to the forest. Do you think there's any way? I'm just wondering. This guy understands the law to a better degree than most. Do you think that there's any way he was setting up his defense in these moments by making these odd comments, or was it just a state of shock? I mean, would it be too hard to anticipate having to do this?
Well, that's a great question. Ned kind of opined that it could be a state of shock, and it could. As a prosecutor, I'm kind of looking at that video and thinking to myself, well, I'm gonna talk about that video in conjunction with the video of the actual killing, and kind of a counterpoint to what Ned was saying. A prosecutor, the DA, should always use their discretion early on in the process and throughout the process to determine, is this a case I want to take to trial? And if there's a really good argument made to me by Ned or the defense team that there's a reason to not try the case and to resolve it, then we're going to listen to that, and we'll do it if that's what justice requires. But if I'm at trial and we've kind of gone past that point, we're beyond plea negotiations, we're in front of a jury of 12, I'm going to object to Ned's voir dire about a time to kill to the extent that I don't think it's relevant to argue or be conversing with the jury about jury nullification, which is that's contrary to the instructions that judges will give to jurors to follow the law and the evidence. So if we're at trial, it's all hands on deck. And I agree with Ned that the defense almost certainly has to swing for the fences here and try the jury nullification. But I'm going to play the video of the killing. I'm going to do a timeline from the time of lunch to the time of the killing, minute by minute, to show how long this sheriff had to ponder, think about, reflect on, and decide as he converses with the judge and sets this up in chambers to execute him with 8 gunshots. And I'm going to go back to that video in the car and probably argue to the jury that this sheriff is smart enough to know better than to answer their questions. And he knew he had planned this. He knew exactly what he was doing. And his only responses were attempts to manipulate the police who were about to incarcerate him and try to get the best treatment he could before he got locked up.
Well put. And for those who do not know, now you know, it is General Mark Davidson. He is an active district attorney general in the great state of Tennessee. Always brings valuable insight. Next up, Gavin Fish, the man with the soothing voice. I had no idea he has 5, now 6 kids, and one is married when he looks like he's not old enough to be married himself.
You guys,
it's amazing what you learn.
Look at the stripes, man.
Yeah,
look at
that.
I've earned all these gray.
But I do have a buddy. If I go to cover this trial, I'm going to make Gavin come with me. Gavin, he's also got an amazing YouTube channel that's growing quickly. Gavin Fish. Gavin, your final thoughts on this case. What's your gut tell you? I got to ask you, does your gut tell you that this revolves around Sheriff Stines' daughter, or you just have no idea?
I really don't know what to believe when it comes to the daughter. That there have been rumors about it. I mean, we do know from the preliminary hearing that there was a call that it was attempted to be made to his daughter from his phone. There was a call from the judge's phone that I think connected. He talked with his daughter, I believe. But I don't know that that is necessarily an indication that there was something untoward happening between Judge Mullins and the daughter of Mickey Stines. I just don't know that. What I do suspect is that there was something that was angering enough to cause a sheriff who had served under that judge as his bailiff for 10 years and then as sheriff for something like 22 years to draw his service weapon and fire 8 shots and hit the judge 8 times. Over on my channel, we've been listening to these the proffers interviews that Mr. Pillersdorf has told us about. We've listened to his clients. I'm about to go over and listen to the last part of Jennifer Hill's interview. They're absolutely fascinating, and I hope that the attention continues on this case. It does kind of feel like it's kind of a flash in the pan. I hope that they allow cameras in the trial. If this makes it to trial, this is just a fascinating enough case that I would love to be able to watch it. But yeah, thanks for having me on, Joel. It's nice to meet you, Mark, and Ned. Thanks for being on.
Yes, awesome. Last but certainly not least, the star guest of the show tonight and his COE. I saw a bit of her shoulder before. Is Ned Pillersdorf. He's a lawyer in the Lecher County area where this is all happening. He's representing Sabrina Atkins and represents another client who's now deceased, sadly. There's a question, Ned, about the judge's devices. Do you know if they have been seized? Are they looking into that as part of this ongoing investigation, even though he's no longer with us? And just your final thoughts on this case.
Once again, I understand from media reports that the cell phones of both Stines and Judge Mullins, and maybe somebody else was seized. That's standard police procedure. You know, my thoughts on the cases, as I've expressed, but I do want to go back to my agenda that, you know, how vulnerable the women, not just in Letcher County, but anywhere, are to sexual exploitation. And that the world has changed. Kentucky criminal courts are full of women, and we don't think what Ben Fields did, that we allege that Stines knew or should have known was going on, was an isolated incident. And I hope that this is a terrible tragedy, no matter how this works out. But we're hoping some good will come out for a courageous woman like Sabrina Atkins, who came forward. And my agenda is for her. She's my client and the estate of the late Jennifer Hill, who unfortunately is no longer with us.
I really appreciate the best guest. I did not realize Gavin has a show coming up momentarily, so you can check that out. We're doing a live on the LA fire starting at 9:00. We saw a bunch of super chats already coming in. All the super chats are being donated to the Los Angeles Fire Department Foundation. These guests were awesome. This is a wild case. I mean, a real mystery. By the way, tomorrow night, speaking of crazy cases, we're getting back to the God's Misfits case in Oklahoma, where 2 mothers were murdered and 5 people have been arrested in that case. So we'll be circling back to that. And Ned, will you come back on and give us some updates as we move forward here?
Sure. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, thank you. Love you, America. Love you, Appalachia, Letcher County, Tennessee, Western PA. I'm here in Miami where it's chilly, everybody. It's in the 50s or 60s.
I don't know how you survive.
Yeah, I don't know how much more I could take. But I'll see you guys at 9 o'clock. Great panel. Guess stick around for 1 second if you can, Gavin. I know you have to run.